Have you ever decided that you are going to create yourself a daily art practice, that you are going to sketch every single day, only to fail in those endeavours? That was me. I am in my late 40s and I have been trying for decades to create a daily sketchbook practice, and I have failed time and time and time again. However, this year, from September the 1st, I have managed every single day to put something into my sketchbook. That can now officially be called a habit. So, how did I go from constantly failing to managing a daily sketchbook practice? Let's get into it. I will share my hints and tips and make sketchbooking daily accessible for you as well. I think one of the biggest changes to me was a mindset shift, and that came with really lowering my expectations a lot. I think if you're a creative person, then you're probably like me, you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube, and we're seeing these beautiful sketchbooks, we're seeing people's artwork at its best, and that's what we aspire to. But it's remembering that those people did not get there without an awful lot of practice. And it's been about lowering the expectations. Some days I have got the time to spend and really kind of work at a sketch and spend an hour or so on it. Sometimes I have less than 5 minutes. That 5 minute sketch is not going to look the same. So it's kind of like lowering the expectations. The purpose for this sketch pad was not to produce something beautiful page after page, but it was just to make sure that I did something every single day. If it was a 5-second doodle of a heart, I had showed up for that day, and so it was a win. And I think that really made a difference of just changing the expectation. In reality, we're not going to have the same amount of time every single day in order to create a sketch. So be flexible with it. Allow there to be days where it's only a couple of seconds, and enjoy the days when it's a little bit longer. The person who really helped the most with this mindset shift for me was watching the lovely Chantel Arts. She has a series on her channel called the Daily Doodle Diary. And I think using that word doodle makes a whole difference. It kind of lowers the expectation. A doodle, we can all doodle, we've all done it whilst on the phone. Everybody doodles. So I think that really makes a difference as to, I'm not trying to create a masterpiece, I'm just trying to show up. And I think having that reasonable expectation of yourself helped with the daily practice. So the next tip may sound obvious, but it's making your sketchbook accessible. So I have my sketchbook so I can see it every day. I can't miss it. It's a constant reminder of, you need to sketch in me. So I actually have mine next to my bed with a pencil case. And if the day goes to plan, I wake up, I have a cup of tea, because I'm one of these people that has to have a cup of tea before I get going. But I will have a cup of tea, do a quick sketch in my sketch pad before I get up. Hence why I don't always have sketches to show you, because I'm not going to film myself in my pajamas sketching in bed. That's just a bit weird. But anyway, I find that's an ideal time for me to kind of do some sketching. The other good thing about that particular practice is that I find it gives me a healthier start to the day as well, because I'm not opening my phone and starting doom scrolling straight away. I'm doing something creative. I actually feel that I have a better day for it, so that works well. If for whatever reason I don't manage to get my sketch done that day, because as I said, ideally, we all know ideal days very rarely happen, I then move my sketchbook from next to my bed to the little side table in my living room. The reason being, again, I'm constantly seeing it, so it's a reminder of the fact that I need to do my sketch. Also, another tip is to habit stack. So I mentioned I have a cup of tea first thing in the morning. The other thing I do is I always have a cup of tea at 11 o'clock. And what I tend to do when I'm doing things like housework or admin tasks, I struggle to focus. So I tend to use the Pomodoro method, and I focus for like 20 to 25 minutes. Then I stop and have a cup of tea for 10 minutes. And when I do that, I like to either read or sketch. And the reason that I do that is because I find that I don't get the sort of mental benefit if I'm on my phone. So I know that I stop for 10 minutes and I know I have a cup of tea for 10 minutes. That is something that is a habit and I already do on a daily basis. So habit stacking or putting another habit on top of that just helps it to be more successful. You're doing that anyway, and eventually your brain will associate the stopping mid-morning for a cup of tea with also picking up your pencil and sketching for a little bit. So I found that to be really, really helpful. Okay, so another thing that is really useful to think about is adding things into your journal. So don't feel stuck. If for whatever reason, despite your best efforts, you find yourself without your sketchbook, then you can draw on anything. You can draw on the back of a receipt, you can draw on any sort of scrap of paper that is to hand, and any writing or drawing implement that is to hand. So this is an example of this. I didn't have my sketchbook with me. This was actually a page out of my daughter's school book, and right at the back of this notepad we found something that she'd written years ago, which had kind of said, "The forest was as green as a dad bod with a mustache and a monocle." Bizarre, but it kind of sparked a little bit of imagination in me. So I kind of sketched this and then just stuck it in later. And so that's fine too. So just use whatever is to hand. You don't need all your fancy supplies. If you've got something to hand, just use it and stick it into your diary, so you've still got that sort of accountability of the fact that you have done something for that day. Along similar lines, consider the size of your journal. So these are the 3 that I have been working in since September. As you can see, none of them are too big, and this one's particularly small. But the advantage of that is that they are really portable. So all of these sketchbooks do fit into my handbag really easily. So I can fit this and a pencil case into my handbag, which means that I always have something with me. So again, it's taking advantage of these pockets of time. So we might be stuck in the car. If we're not driving, we can kind of sketch any form of public transport, obviously, sat in a doctor's waiting room. There's lots of occasions when we're out and about that we maybe have a spare few minutes, and as we've established, it doesn't need to be long. It can be 30 seconds, but if it's just a pocket of time, that rather than doom scrolling, we could be using it to sketch, and I find that having something with me really helps. I hope the tips I mentioned today were of benefit to you. If you have any more tips, I'm always happy to learn, so please do let me know in the comments below. Now, this video is part of my From Sketchbook to Craft Desk series. What that means is every month I take an image from my sketchbook and turn it into a digital stamp for you guys to be able to download and use in your own creative practice. So this month I have done this one. So this has been turned into a lovely digi image. I think it's perfect for colorists. It's perfect for paper crafters. You can use the image as a whole, or you can break it apart and do lots of fun collage style things. We are going to have a little play just now. We're going to make a card and do a quick journal page, and I hope you enjoy watching the process. For this one, I have decided to create a little handmade card, and I want to get a little bit creative with the image as well. So in order to do that, I've actually printed the image out twice. We're going to have one section that we kind of keep mostly just plainly coloured, and another one that we're going to cut into and add little bits of collage elements at the end. So the first thing I needed to do was to colour in the image. First of all, you saw me sort of measure a die cut frame against the image, so that I made sure that I was only colouring the sections that I need to colour. I start off by creating a base layer of all the different colours, just as a flat tone, apart from sometimes like here on the mushroom I did sort of change between shadows and light, but then I added all the extra details with these sort of like stippling techniques and things, so we get our shadows in that way and also create a little bit of interest and texture. I then get this die cut frame. I want it to stand out a little bit, so I use my alcohol marker there to colour it in black, and we're going to just use that to actually frame the piece that we have coloured. So I'm sticking that down loosely, and then I will trim that away with my scissors. I only put a tiny bit of glue so I can actually get the blade of my scissors behind the die quite easily, so there's no fancy fussy cutting to do. But just as this is an open frame, I just used those clouds as a little link so that the frame made sense, and then got that all nice and neat and ready to go onto our card base. As I said, I also wanted to create just a little extra detail, so I coloured in this little sort of mushroom set from the other image that I had printed off. So that's what I'm saying, we can use this as a whole, but we can also pull it apart and get a little bit creative if we want. And I wanted to use that as a little bit of an embellishment. So I'm just going to glue the main image down onto the card with the frame, and then I'm just actually going to use a little bit of 3D foam on the back of that, what we've created a little embellishment from, by just kind of cutting into the image and having that sat on the corner. I just thought it added a little bit of extra interest. Being me, we need to add a doodly border because, you know, to me things are naked without a doodly border. I don't know what to say. I look at it and it's just not finished. I thought that little extra bit that I put in looked a bit lost and floaty, so I just grounded it with a little bit of grey, added a sentiment, and that's that one all done. For the next make, we are keeping it really simple. I just wanted to try a sort of slightly creative colouring technique and then pop that straight into my art journal. I think I maybe need to practice this technique a little bit more. It went okay, but I think I could have executed it slightly better, but it's one to kind of shelve for a future idea. Basically, in fairly pale colours, I wanted to go through and create a little bit of a rainbow. At this point, I'm just trying to get background in and get a nice blend and transition between the various colours. Once I had done that, I then went into each section and tried to build up the shadow areas a little bit so that we still have a little bit of depth between the colours, and the overall colour story makes a lot more sense. So just again, like I did on the other one, I added stippling techniques and things to help. I thought it was looking quite good, but it still needed a bit of extra help, so I used my pencils just to add a final bit of depth, and then finally went over all the elements with a white gel pen just to add a few extra doodles to make it pop, and then just simply popped it into my art journal. And there we go, from sketchbook to craft desk. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do hope you will download your free digital stamp, and I will be back again next week with a brand new video.